So the stack of sources we've pulled for you today, well, it's a bit of a wild mix.
That's one way to put it, yeah.
I mean, if you were just looking at the titles, you'd see Peter Thiel's business philosophy sitting right next to studies on ancient royal harems.
And strategic analyses of Cleopatra, modern relationship psychology, and somehow we land on big tech and antitrust.
It sounds completely random.
Right. It sounds like we just threw a dart at a library wall. But there's a thread, a really powerful one, connecting all of it. And that's this concept of strategic leverage.
Exactly. It's this fundamental human drive to escape competition.
Whether that's in business or history or even romance.
So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out how strategy changes when you stop trying to win the fight and instead just create a space where there is no fight.
Yeah, where alternatives aren't even relevant. It's not about winning the race. It's about being the only car on a road you paved yourself.
We're moving from what the sources call the struggle of zero to N to the creation of a category of one.
And that's a great way to frame it. 0 to N is what most people do. You copy a model that works, you try to scale it, and you get into this brutal price-slashing fight.
And that just crushes value.
It does. But 0 to 1, that's the act of true invention, creating something so new that you essentially have a monopoly, at least for a while.
Okay, let's kick this off with the business framework, because it really does set the stage for everything else. Peter Thiel, you know, the PayPal co-founder, famous venture capitalist, he has this claim that's, well, it's pretty provocative.
Oh, yeah. Monopoly is for winners, competition is for losers.
Exactly. And that just feels, I don't know, almost un-American, doesn't it?
Totally. We're taught from day one that competition is healthy. It's what drives innovation. But Thiel's point is that in a perfectly competitive market, all the profit just gets competed away.
Right, driven down to zero. So everyone is just scrambling to survive, and nobody has the breathing room to actually innovate.
And we have some pretty stark data points on this. Let's take the U.S. airline industry. It's a classic example of just fierce competition.
Huge revenues, right. Something like $160 billion annually.
Massive revenues. But because the pricing is so cutthroat, profit margins are basically non-existent. Get this. In 2012, that entire industry made only about 37 cents of profit per passenger.
37 cents.
Yeah.
That is a soul-crushing business model. We're all just fighting each other to a standstill.
It's the definition of a 0 to N struggle. But now you compare that to a 0 to 1 creation.
Like Google.
Like Google. Around that same time, Google brought in about $50 billion in revenue. So less than a third of the airlines. But here's the kicker.
They kept 21% of it as profit.
21%. The difference is just stunning. Google's profit margin was more than 100 times bigger than the entire airline industry.
Which is why Google, as a single company, was valued at 3 times more than every single U.S. airline combined.
Mm-hmm. They weren't competing. They created a category, a search monopoly, and that allowed them to capture all that value.
But this is where Thiel takes it from just a business lesson to something much deeper psychologically. He says competition itself is a trap because of how we form our desires. He's a huge fan of the philosopher René Girard.
Yes, and this is the critical piece, Girard's mimetic theory. The idea is that we don't really choose our desires from scratch. We copy them from other people. We want something because someone else wants it.
So a rival actually creates the desire in the first place.
Exactly. And what happens when everyone starts copying the same desire?
You get a frenzy.
Total frenzy. Everyone fights for the same job, the same startup idea, the same social status, and the actual value and uniqueness just get annihilated in the process.
So Thiel's advice is basically stop copying your neighbors. Go find the empty space, the secret that no one else is looking for, and build something there.
But I guess the question is, if everyone is trying to find a 0 to 1 idea,
doesn't that just become a new form of competition?
Well, it can be for a moment. But the goal is to build a defense, a moat proprietary tech, network effects, a powerful brand that's so durable that by the time people catch up, you're already somewhere else entirely.
Okay, so let's try to bridge that idea into, well, maybe the most fundamental human arena of all. Dating and relationships. How does this 0 to 1 thinking apply there?
You see the same drive for leverage, for dominance, but the consequences can be a lot darker. If we look at the historical extremes first, it's pretty sobering.
You mean things like resource defense polygyny?
Yeah, where a few despotic males would control not just wealth, but the entire reproductive resource space. We're talking about royal harems in early civilizations with anywhere from 4,000 to 16,000 women.
That number is just staggering. It's a system where competition is completely eliminated for the one person at the top.
And it was formalized. The sources point to the Inca Empire, where the size of a man's harem was literally regulated by law based on his rank. Partnership wasn't about mutual value, it was a commodity, a political monopoly.
So that's the absolute extreme. But even in modern dating, you see these little strategic plays to create a sort of personal monopoly of desire.
Right, which brings us to the whole playing hard to get thing. Psychologically, there's a reason it can work, but the science shows it's a very fine line.
This is Brim's emotion intensity theory.
That's the one. It basically says attraction is a motivational state. Think of it like a video game. If the goal is too easy, you get bored. If it's impossible, you quit.
But if it's moderately difficult,
The motivation, the intensity of the desire is at its peak. The studies confirm it. People are most attracted to potential partners who are seen as moderately hard to get. Not easy, but also not, overly selective or impossible.
okay, but this is where we have to put up a big flashing warning sign.
Right.
Because that same mechanism can be twisted into manipulation.
Yeah, huge warning sign. The sources are very clear that the classic hot and cold strategy, being super attentive and then just vanishing for a week, that's just intermittent reinforcement.
It's literally how you train a rat to pull a lever. You make the reward sporadic and unpredictable.
And the person on the receiving end starts working harder, they blame themselves, they wait desperately for that next little hit of positive attention.
The sources say this isn't some clever dating hack. It's emotional manipulation that can cause real, long-lasting psychological harm. It creates a bottleneck using trauma, not actual value.
Yeah. The healthier approach, the true 0 to 1 in a partnership, comes from defining your goals differently. The contrast is between what are called approach and avoidance motives.
Okay, so approach motives are
They're about pursuing a positive outcome. You're trying to increase pleasure, deepen intimacy, build something together. It's about moving toward a shared goal.
and that leads to higher satisfaction for everyone.
Consistently. Avoidance motives, on the other hand, are about preventing a negative outcome. So you have sex with your partner to avoid a fight, or you go on a date just so they won't get upset.
You're motivated by fear, not joy.
Exactly. And unsurprisingly, that leads to way lower well-being. And there was another finding here. If you yourself have a high degree of attachment avoidance, it's negatively correlated with your partner's psychological well-being.
Wow. So your own internal strategy for escaping vulnerability directly harms the person you're with.
So let's shift from these dynamics to some historical figures who really mastered this idea of becoming a category of one, not just through power, but through pure strategic brilliance.
And the ultimate example has to be Cleopatra. We always focus on her beauty or her allure, but that totally misses the point.
It really does. Her power wasn't personal, it was structural. She built an entire leverage stack. She controlled the state, she had military alliances, and she literally fused her identity with a goddess.
So her relationships with Caesar and Mark Antony weren't just romances.
Not at all. They were high-stakes political mergers. Her sexual access was symbolic. It was the irreplaceable gate for Roman power into Egypt. You couldn't replicate it.
And she sealed that deal by framing herself as Isis incarnate. You can't compete with a living goddess who also happens to control the grain shipments that feed Rome. That's a serious moat.
An incredible moat. And then there's another, maybe less known, but equally fascinating figure, Ninon de l'Enclos.
A 17th century French noblewoman, a libertine.
But not just as a lifestyle, as a philosophical position. She argued that love and pleasure were natural instincts, not some spiritual virtue that had to be restricted.
And her strategy was just brilliant. She organized her social and romantic life like a segmented market to give her maximum leverage.
She split her male followers into 3 distinct categories. First, you had favorites.
Her actual lovers, chosen purely for her own pleasure and intellectual connection. Scarce resource.
Right. Then category 2, the payers. These were wealthy men who financed her salon, her social hub. They got no intimacy. They were just investors in her ecosystem.
And the third group.
The martyrs. Hopeless suitors who adored her from afar. Their unrequited love served as constant public proof of her high value. It was social validation as a service.
She basically created her own category by embodying qualities, intellect, autonomy that were reserved for men at the time, while still being this icon of feminine grace. There was no one else like her.
And if you look for modern institutional parallels, you can see these 0 to 1 breakthroughs in politics.
Like Nancy Landon Cassavant, becoming the first woman elected to the U.S. Senate without just filling her husband's unexpired term.
It's a huge milestone. And of course, more recently, the election of Kamala Harris as vice president, breaking multiple conventional barriers at once. These are moments where the competitive field itself is redefined.
So finally, let's scale this whole concept up leverage. Escaping competition to the level of entire systems like science and technology.
Why? Because you see the exact same struggle playing out. In academia, for a long time, scholarly merit was a really competitive 0 to N game.
It was all about individual fame, citation counts, your personal career.
Exactly. But now there's this big, necessary push toward open scientific practices. Sharing data, sharing materials. The goal is to advance the field collectively.
It's a move toward transparency and trust.
It is, but it comes at a personal cost. One source described it as being like inviting other researchers to look at how you organize your bedroom closet. It's vulnerable, but it builds collective trust and stops people from fighting over the same basic facts again and again.
And meanwhile, in tech, you have the opposite happening. The big platforms JFAM, Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, they've already achieved a kind of structural monopoly.
Oh, absolutely. Through network effects and just sheer scale, they've become what you might call private regulators.
They're the gatekeepers. If you want to launch an app or sell a product online, you have to go through them.
And this leads to a huge regulatory concern the sources highlight, which is stealth consolidation.
This is where they just quietly buy up all the little startups that might one day compete with them.
Exactly. Each individual merger is too small to trigger a big antitrust review. But over time, they just vacuum up all the future competition, protecting their category of one status.
It effectively suffocates new 0 to 1 creation. And this all comes back to a critical point about public trust in data.
Yeah, during the COVID crisis, for example, people became much more willing to share sensitive health data for things like contact tracing.
Because the public need, the collective threat, was so high that the value proposition changed overnight.
Right. But the crucial warning for policymakers, and really for all of us, is that you have to be so careful to limit how that data is used after the crisis is over. That kind of leverage in the hands of big institutions requires constant vigilance.
So after all of that, from business to love to politics, what's the core insight here?
I think it's that true, lasting success, real value, it rarely comes from just being better than the next person in a crowded field. It comes from making that field irrelevant.
It's about creating a category of one. Whether that's a product that's truly unique or a relationship built on those mutual approach goals, moving towards something positive together.
The underlying mechanism is identical. You create something that is in its own way incomparable.
And since competition is just such a massive drain on our energy, our time, our resources, in basically every part of life, we want to leave you with an adaptation of that Peter Thiel question.
What valuable thing are you currently competing fiercely for when you might be able to create something so unique that alternatives aren't even relevant? That's your challenge for the week.